All right, today we are diving into something, well, something pretty radical. It's a brand new playbook for building teams that can thrive in the age of AI, especially when things get chaotic. It's called the Honey Badger Management Framework. And yeah, it's as intense as it sounds.
But it all kicks off with a really provocative question. What if I told you the secret to unlocking incredible performance was to make your own people compete against each other? I mean, head to head, on the exact same project. Sounds like a recipe for total disaster, right? Well, the paper we're looking at today says not only is it possible, it could be the key to unlocking amazing results. But, and you have to pay attention to this part, it comes with a massive, high-stakes catch. If you get this wrong, you don't just have a failed project. You could tear the very fabric of your team's culture apart. So how do you play with that kind of fire without getting seriously burned? Well, that's exactly what this framework is designed to do. So let's get into it. Let's meet the honey badger. Okay, so here's the official definition, pulled straight from the source. The Honey Badger Management Framework, or HBMF, is an operating model for teams that mix humans and AI. It uses a blend of competition, artificial intelligence, redundancy, and super fast work cycles. And the whole point isn't just to survive when things are crazy and uncertain, it's to actually use that chaos to get ahead. So the entire system is built on these four pillars. You've got short cycles, governed competition, AI teaming, and redundancy. Now, the most important thing to get from the paper is that you can't just cherry pick your favorites. They're designed to be a complete, integrated system where each part balances out the others. This whole thing sounds pretty wild, I know, but is it just a cool-sounding theory or is it actually backed by science? And this is the part I really love about the source material. It doesn't just throw the idea out there. It actually grades the scientific evidence for each and every pillar. So let's see how it holds up. First up, Pillar 1, short cycles. And listen, we are not talking about your cozy 2-week agile sprint here. HBMF runs on these aggressive 7-day cycles that you can cancel at any moment. The whole idea is to fail fast, and maybe more importantly, fail cheap. Now, the logic behind this is really fascinating. It's based on something from finance called real options theory. So think of it this way. Every week, you're not committing to the whole project. You're just paying a small price for the option to continue. That makes it super cheap to just walk away from a bad idea. And the evidence backing this up? A rock-solid A-. This part of the framework is built on some seriously firm ground. Okay, now for the pillar that gets everyone talking, governed competition. This is the wild idea of having two of your own internal teams work in parallel, trying to solve the exact same problem, with a winner-take-all prize at the end of each short cycle. Now, this idea comes from tournament theory, which says that a big playoff-style prize can get people to put in way more effort. But just look at that evidence grade, a C+ to a B-. The paper is brutally honest about this. Competition can boost effort, but its effect really depends on the specific situation and the rules of the game. This, right here, is the framework's biggest gamble. All right, let's move on to the next pillar, AI teaming. And this is way more than just handing out a ChatGPT subscription to everybody. In this framework, AI assistants are treated as formal, accountable members of the team, contributing to the final output. The evidence that AI makes individuals more productive? Yeah, that's pretty solid. We've all seen how it can speed up things like writing code or drafting documents, and that's why it gets a B grade. But the paper rightly points out that the long-term effects on how a team works together, on creativity, those are still huge open questions. And that brings us to the final pillar, the one that kind of holds the whole system together and makes it resilient: redundancy. This means you are deliberately building in overlapping skills and extra capacity. Because remember, you have two teams working on the same thing. It is the exact opposite of the lean, hyper-efficient models we're all used to. And the logic here is just brilliant. It's a core idea from reliability engineering. You know, just like a modern airplane has multiple backup systems in case one fails, a Honey Badger team has built-in redundancy so it can survive setbacks and learn faster. And this pillar scores a very respectable B+. So we've got this incredibly powerful system, but at its heart is that very risky, very volatile competition. How do you stop the whole thing from blowing up in your face? Well, that brings us to the secret sauce, the single most important role in this entire framework, the guru. Because the paper is crystal clear about the number one way this all goes wrong. It calls out the critical risk right here. If the governance is ineffective, the competition will destroy psychological safety. And when that happens, the whole system just collapses. So the guru isn't a manager. Think of them more like the referee of the game. Their only job is to protect the health of the system. And they do 4 really key things. First, they make sure every decision and rule is totally transparent. Second, they have a zero-tolerance policy for any kind of sabotage or dirty tricks. Third, they're the impartial judge for any disputes to make sure things are fair. And finally, and this is the most critical part, they run a psychological safety check every single week. If that score dips below a certain line, it's like a circuit breaker that automatically stops the process. The framework also has some other really clever safety features built right in. For example, teams have to declare their knowledge gaps up front. And I love this one. There are mandatory, time-boxed older brother/younger brother help sessions, where the teams are actually required to help each other. It forces these little pockets of cooperation right into the middle of all the competition. Okay, so we've got the pillars, we've got the risks, and we've got the safety nets. After breaking it all down, what's the final verdict on the Honey Badger framework? Is this thing genius, or is it just pure madness? This slide really tells the whole story. The framework is this constant, delicate balancing act. Let's just look at that first row. You combine competition with redundancy, and you get this incredible synergy. You're basically searching for the best solution in parallel. But at the exact same time, you create this dangerous tension, the risk that one team might sabotage the other or just refuse to help. The success of this whole thing depends on pumping up those synergies while very, very actively managing those tensions. And that brings us to the real verdict. See, the authors don't present this as some proven, off-the-shelf solution you can just install tomorrow. They conclude that it is a coherent and defensible theory, what they call a testable organizational hypothesis, which is really just a fancy way of saying, we think this is a really smart idea, but it needs to be put to the test in the real world. And for any company out there that's bold enough to give it a shot, the paper actually provides a clear and, more importantly, a safe way to do it. Run a small 3-month pilot with just 2 teams. Use standard metrics that you already know to measure performance. And, most importantly, you measure psychological safety every single week, with those non-negotiable stopping rules if the numbers start to dip. It's a call to experiment, but to do it with real discipline. And that leaves us with one final, pretty challenging question. This framework, it offers a potential path to extreme performance in an age of just extreme uncertainty, but it demands an incredible level of maturity, transparency, and trust from a team. So the real question isn't just whether the framework works in theory, it's whether your team's culture is actually strong enough to tame the honey badger.